Roof Max of Hickory. Affordable roof rejuvenation. Visit MakeMyRoofLast.com.
This is our weekly recap of some of the crime stories we had for you during the last week on the WHKY News. I'm Ralph Mangum. These stories come from the week of February 3rd through the 7th. Here we go now. According to multiple published reports, 29-year-old Kaylee Elizabeth Gamble was arrested by Conover police Friday on 8 counts of assault on a child under 12. Gamble was a teacher at the Woodlawn Baptist Church Child Development Center. She was reportedly fired from that position. At last report, Gamble was not listed as an inmate in Catawba County. A court date was scheduled for February 3rd.
26-year-old Remigio DeLeon of Morganton was arrested Saturday by Morganton public safety officers. He's charged with felony flee to elude arrest along with multiple highway violations, including driving while impaired, reckless driving to endanger, and speeding 92 miles per hour in a 45 mile per hour zone. On Saturday at 12:44 a.m., an officer saw a gray Honda Accord driving at 15 miles per hour in a posted 45 miles per hour zone and failed to maintain the lane of travel. The officer attempted to conduct a traffic stop, but the driver rapidly accelerated. The driver of the Honda, identified as Remigio DeLeon, reportedly reached speeds in excess of 92 miles per hour. The chase continued for approximately 2.1 miles, ending on Highway 70 just prior to East Winds Avenue when DeLeon stopped his vehicle and pulled to the right. DeLeon and a passenger were detained, and after further investigation, DeLeon was arrested and the passenger was provided with transportation to his residence. The vehicle driven by the suspect was seized. DeLeon was brought before the magistrate and given no bond due to being on pretrial release for a DWI charge in October of 2024. He has a court date set for May 5th, 2025. The Burke County Sheriff's Office and Drexel Police Department were assisting agencies.
According to authorities, the two suspects in this case were caught on camera stealing thousands of dollars in copper. The two suspects attempted to flee the scene but were apprehended by police with the assistance of a canine officer. 44-year-old Larry Edward Moore of Southeast Way Drive and 30-year-old Ashley Jane Hubble of Triplet Road, both from Harmony, were arrested by Iredell County Sheriff's officers. Moore is charged with 2 counts of felony larceny along with a single count of felony conspiracy and single counts of misdemeanor resist, obstruct, and delay an officer, first-degree trespass, and damage to property. Hubble was charged with felony conspiracy and misdemeanor counts of resist, obstruct, and delay an officer and first-degree trespass. Last Friday, an officer responded to a larceny in progress at Evergreen Heating and Air on Jennings Road in Statesville. Suspects were caught on camera stealing $2,000 in copper, according to police. They attempted to flee but got stuck in a muddy field. A canine officer tracked them down a half-mile away, leading to their arrest. Moore was placed in jail under no bond due to the fact that he was previously out on bond on a charge of felony larceny. Hubble was given a $2,500 bond. Moore has a court date scheduled for May 12th. There was no court date listed for Hubble as of the time I'm filing this report. Reporting for WHKY News, I'm Rob Eastwood. The defendant entered a guilty plea here at Catawba County Superior Court in Newton on Monday. 18-year-old Kyle Vernon Sidney pleaded guilty to second-degree forcible rape on Monday and received a prison sentence of 5 to 10 years. The offenses occurred while the defendant was a juvenile, but the cases were transferred to Superior Court for prosecution. Sidney was also given a suspended sentence of 16 to 29 months with 36 months of probation after pleading guilty to incest. If activated, that sentence will run at the conclusion of the first active sentence. In addition, Sidney was ordered to register as a sex offender for a period of 30 years, receive sex offender treatment, and to never have contact with the victim. The offenses occurred between April and October of 2023, when the defendant was 16 years old and the victim was 15. One of the sexual assaults occurred in the home of the legal guardian, and the other took place in a swimming pool. Sidney admitted what he had done during an interview with law enforcement. The victim's claims were substantiated by a forensic interview conducted at the Children's Advocacy and Protection Center of Catawba County. The Conover Police Department investigated this case. So once again, a 5 to 10 year prison sentence for Kyle Vernon Sidney, who entered a guilty plea on Monday in Catawba County Superior Court to second-degree forcible rape.
31-year-old Jonathan Ray Cutler of Taylorsville was sentenced to a minimum of 2 years in prison in an attempted kidnapping case. He also entered a guilty plea to drug charges in Iredell County and received prison time in that case as well. Cutler was sentenced to 24 to 38 months in prison during a recent session of Alexander County Superior Court. He entered an offered plea to attempted second-degree kidnapping and assault on a female. In an offered plea, a defendant maintains innocence while formally pleading guilty. The defendant acknowledges that the prosecution's evidence would likely convince a jury or judge of their guilt, but does not admit to committing the crime. The offenses occurred on June 18th of last year. Cutler was arrested on June 24th by the Alexander County Sheriff's Office. Cutler also pleaded guilty in Iredell County Superior Court to possession with intent to sell or deliver meth and felony maintaining a place for a controlled substance. According to the North Carolina Department of Adult Correction, Cutler's projected release date is June 24, 2026. He is currently in custody in Tabor City, North Carolina.
A Statesville man received a minimum sentence of just under 6 years in prison in an Iredell County drug case. 45-year-old Randall Carr pleaded guilty to trafficking in opium or heroin and 6 counts of possession with intent to sell or deliver cocaine. He was sentenced to 70 to 93 months in prison and was ordered to pay a $50,000 fine. Carr's arrest was the culmination of a Statesville Police Department investigation initiated as the result of citizen complaints about illegal drug activity at an address on Glade Street. After investigators and officers conducted surveillance and made undercover purchases of crack cocaine from that location, a search was conducted on February 6, 2024. Officers seized close to 30 grams of cocaine, 105 dosage units of oxycodone, and 11 grams of marijuana. U.S. currency and drug paraphernalia were also seized. Carr is serving his sentence at Piedmont Correctional Institution in Salisbury. I'm Ariana Mack for WHKY.
22-year-old Tyrone Javel Parter of Troy, North Carolina, has been arrested by Hickory police on 2 counts of trafficking in methamphetamine, along with single counts of maintaining a vehicle, dwelling, or place for a controlled substance and resisting a public officer. Parter was jailed on February 4th in the Catawba County Detention Facility under a $250,500 bond. An appearance in district court was scheduled on the 4th in Newton, with a court date in Randolph County on one of the trafficking charges coming up on February 17th.
29-year-old George Lee of Claremont entered a guilty plea to felony death by vehicle and driving while impaired. He was sentenced to 60 to 84 months in prison, that's 5 to 7 years, during a recent session of Iredell County Superior Court. Lee is charged in connection to a fatal crash June 24th of 2023. The North Carolina State Highway Patrol reported that 48-year-old Chad Jeremy Hart passed away as a result of injuries sustained in a crash near the intersection of Buffalo Shoals Road and Old Mountain Road. Mr. Hart was traveling west on his 2004 Harley-Davidson motorcycle when a 2007 Infiniti G35 traveling east attempted to turn in front of him, causing the crash. Mr. Hart was transported to a local hospital where he passed away. The driver of the Infiniti, identified as George Lee, was arrested and initially charged with driving while impaired. So once again, a sentence of 60 to 84 months or 5 to 7 years in prison for George Lee of Claremont, who entered that guilty plea recently in connection to the fatal wreck in 2023. He is serving his sentence at Craggy Correctional Center in Asheville. Reporting for WHKY News, I'm Rob Eastwood.
56-year-old Troy Carl Werkheiser of Doubletree Drive in Statesville was arrested Sunday by Iredell County Sheriff's officers. He's charged with felony counts of possession of fentanyl and maintaining a vehicle for the use of a controlled substance, misdemeanor possession of drug paraphernalia, and various traffic violations. During the early morning hours Sunday, a deputy with the aggressive criminal enforcement team attempted to conduct a traffic stop on a Chevrolet Camaro for a traffic violation on Bethlehem Road. Instead of stopping immediately, the driver continued on before finally pulling into a driveway off of an address on Doubletree Drive. While speaking with the driver, Troy Carl Werkheiser, the officer detected the strong odor of marijuana coming from inside the vehicle. After having Werkheiser exit the car, a subsequent search uncovered approximately 2.23 grams of fentanyl. Werkheiser was transported to the Iredell County Detention Center under $10,000 secured bond. A district court date was scheduled for February 24th.
60-year-old James Henry Hall of Stony Point has been arrested by Alexander County Sheriff's deputies on one count of assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill, inflicting serious bodily injury. He was charged in connection with a shooting this morning. At about 9:54 a.m. today, Alexander County 911 Communications took a call regarding a shooting victim at a residence on Mount Wesley Church Road in Hiddenite. Deputies arrived on the scene and found a white male victim suffering from an apparent gunshot wound to his lower leg. EMS transported the victim to a local hospital for treatment of non-life-threatening injuries. After further investigation, deputies learned that the shooting occurred at 1056 Johnny Martin Lane in Stony Point. The shooting was the result of an argument between several subjects. Hall was taken into custody and jailed under a $75,000 secured bond. A first appearance in district court was set for February 10th.
The defendant could spend up to 7 years in prison. During a recent session of Iredell County Superior Court, 35-year-old Nathaniel Scott Cass of Statesville entered a guilty plea to death by distribution. He was sentenced to 60 to 84 months or 5 to 7 years in prison. Cass was charged in connection to an overdose death. Authorities did not provide specific details about the victim in the case or the circumstances surrounding the death. Cass was arrested by the Iredell County Sheriff's Office April 2nd of 2023. He was initially charged with second-degree murder. Community members provided an Iredell County deputy with information on where Cass could be found. The defendant was taken into custody at a business located off Harmony Highway. According to reports, Cass had been evading members of regional law enforcement agencies for some time. After hearing evidence in the case, a grand jury determined there was probable cause to charge Cass with second-degree murder by unlawful distribution of substance. So once again, a 60 to 84 month or 5 to 7 year prison sentence for Nathaniel Scott Cass of Statesville, who recently entered a guilty plea to death by distribution. He is being held at the Mountain View Correctional Institution in Spruce Pine. Reporting for WHKY News, I'm Rob Eastwood.
39-year-old Joshua Ryan Rice of Mooresville was given a minimum sentence of 7 years in prison after he pleaded guilty to felony fleeing to elude arrest, 3 counts of possession with intent to sell or deliver a Schedule II controlled substance, and possession of cocaine. He was sentenced to 84 to 113 months in prison during a recent session of Iredell County Superior Court. Rice was also convicted as an habitual felon as the result of several previous convictions dating back to 2003, mostly in Iredell County. Rice was one of 19 suspects arrested in an operation conducted by the Iredell County Sheriff's Office. The suspects were arrested on a variety of drug charges. The arrest occurred in late 2023 and early 2024. All 19 suspects sold illegal drugs to an undercover investigator. 48-year-old Adam Stephen Warren of Taylorsville was sentenced to serve 8 to 19 months in state prison during an appearance in Alexander County Superior Court Monday. Warren entered a guilty plea to felony possession of meth. Warren has a long history of arrest and convictions. He was released from prison in July 2024 after serving 31 months for trafficking a Schedule II controlled substance. In 2020, Warren was released after he served 30 months for involuntary manslaughter. 35-year-old Richard Jerome Barber of Springdale Drive in Newton was arrested by Catawba County Sheriff's officers Wednesday for concealing or failing to report a death. His arrest was the result of an investigation into the death of 42-year-old Crystal Lynn Carroll Willard. She was found deceased on February 2nd in Barber's residence. The cause of Ms. Willard's death is unknown at this time. Autopsy results are pending. Barber was jailed in Catawba County under a $60,000 bond. A district court appearance was scheduled on February 6th. 31-year-old Brian David Hall of Johnny Martin Lane in Stony Point has been arrested and charged with misdemeanor counts of assault by pointing a gun, simple assault, and assault by communicating threats. Brian Hall is the son of 60-year-old James Henry Hall, who was charged in connection with the same incident Thursday. The shooting reportedly took place at the residence where both men live. Alexander County Sheriff Chad Pennell says investigators saw video of the shooting. Brian Hall is being held in the Alexander County Detention Center along with his father, who remained in jail at last report under a $75,000 secured bond. Brian Hall will appear in district court on March 24th. The elder Hall has an appearance coming up on Monday in Taylorsville. The investigation is ongoing. Sheriff Pennell said at least 2 other people were at the scene at the time of the shooting. The victim, who has not been identified, suffered a non-life-threatening gunshot wound to the leg.
Full investigations led to the arrest of the defendant in this case. 30-year-old Ryan Rudy Elledge of Sherrills Ford was sentenced on Thursday to 84 months in prison and 4 years of supervised release for distributing fentanyl. The announcement was made by Dina J. King, U.S. Attorney for the Western District of North Carolina. According to court documents and proceedings, law enforcement began investigating Elledge in January of 2023 for suspected fentanyl distribution in and around Catawba County. On February 17th of 2023, officers executed a search warrant at Elledge's residence, seizing more than 71 grams of fentanyl and more than $21,000 in cash. In February of last year, law enforcement began a second investigation after learning that Elledge was selling drugs again from his home in Newton. On February 22nd of last year, a confidential informant purchased fentanyl and other narcotics from Elledge. The following day, officers executed a search warrant at his residence, seizing fentanyl and methamphetamine. Court records show that Elledge admitted to distributing more than 1 kilogram of fentanyl and over 200 grams of methamphetamine. On August 20th of last year, he pleaded guilty to conspiracy to distribute and to possess with intent to distribute fentanyl and possession with intent to distribute fentanyl. He was being held in the Catawba County Detention Facility pending transfer to the custody of the Federal Bureau of Prisons upon designation of a federal facility. Reporting for WHKY News, I'm Rob Eastwood.
37-year-old Ralph Bunch Washington of Statesville received a minimum prison sentence of just over 3 years during a recent session of Iredell County Superior Court. He pleaded guilty to failure to register as a sex offender, indecent liberties with a child, and habitual felon status. Washington was sentenced to 44 to 113 months in prison. He was also ordered to register as a sex offender for life. Washington was arrested by the Iredell County Sheriff's Office in October of last year. Washington was previously required to register as a sex offender as the result of a 2007 conviction in New Haven, Connecticut for second-degree sexual assault on a minor. He is serving his current sentence in Vanceboro, North Carolina. 41-year-old Quante Anthony Gaither of McKay Road in Newton was arrested by Hickory Police Wednesday on 2 counts of trafficking in opium or heroin, along with single counts of possession of a firearm by a felon, possession of drug paraphernalia, possession of marijuana up to ½ ounce, and simple possession of a Schedule IV controlled substance. Gaither is a felon as the result of a 2005 conviction in Catawba County for statutory rape. Following Wednesday's arrest, Cather was jailed in the Catawba County Detention Facility without bond. He is no longer in custody. A district court date was scheduled on February 6th, with another appearance coming up on February 27th. And that was our look back at a few of the crime stories we had for you during the week of February 3rd through February 7th. Our weekly summary is posted every Saturday on our YouTube channel, along with our top stories, the crime report, local sports, and community focus. I'm Ralph Mangum. Thank you for joining us.